So we are going to be going through a couple of weeks of values, training, teaching, all with the intention in mind of us honing our values into maybe 4 or 5. And I call this really the foundation for greatness because it's really imperative that you get your values right. So the goal is, again, to show you the necessity and the power of values for building a thriving company which delights the client. So the first portion of values is values really help attract the right talent. Okay. So if you think about having the right values and clear values of who you are and how it represents, it allows you to have this kind of rubric to say, okay, how are we going to hire people and how do we sort of pull them in? And then they get to experience that through the process and say, okay, I want more of that, right? Or I don't. And so it helps really detract what we don't and then attract the right talent. So for example, if somebody, really loves creativity, right? They're going to hunt for a place and look for a place where they can exercise that creativity, just, ability to do that. That's a value for them. Somebody that loves to have the opportunity for fun, right? They're going to look for that, right? They might look at the Southwest, right? Where they can be funny and fun. And so that's a value that they really is important to them and that they're going to look for. And so it's really important that we not only understand our values, but that we can communicate that as well. I had a good friend of mine whose dad he barely graduated from high school and was really into chemicals. So he ended up going up to University of Utah every night and he would just come up with all these different mixtures of chemicals and came up with his own detergent called Sun Detergent. If you guys ever remember seeing that in the store, I ended up selling it to Costco years and years later. But he told me, he said, you got to get your product really refined. And they said, then you got to communicate it to everybody because otherwise they're not going to know about it. And so it's the same for us, is really understanding our values, why they're so important to us, how we live those out, and then tell the world. And so we can attract the right people just like you. So I would just like to take a minute or two from you guys, if you all want to chime in, just to say, what was it for you what values maybe attracted you here? What was it that made you go, 1 or 2 things that made you go, that really attracted me to coming here, this type of value that I saw at the firm. So love to hear from you guys.
For me, when I was coming in, a huge thing for me was that I was coming from college and I knew absolutely nothing and was admitted to knowing absolutely nothing about the real world. And that was something that I admitted during the interview, and the response to that was, or your response to that was, I'm glad that you are willing to say that you don't know anything. And I want you to come in ready to just learn things. And that's exactly what we want to do, is just pour into you, help you grow here and learn here. And I think that growth model and really pouring into us so that no matter what, we'll be better than the day that we started. It's just been huge to me since before I even started here.
That's great, Lona. Thank you.
Yeah, I think a big thing too is the focus on everyone being a leader and really just helping other people develop into the leader they never imagined they could be. And also the investment from the team and the aspect of teamwork and just being there for each other and knowing that we don't always know all the answers, but we're willing to wrestle through them to find the right solution to really just make it work. So I think that's definitely a huge draw. And that was a big draw for me when I first started too, which is forever ago, it feels like.
That's great. Thanks, Dan.
For me, it was just the fact that same as Lana, you come in as an intern and you're learning and you don't really know, I didn't know much about, commercial real estate coming into it. So this just opportunity to grow and learn. And then a big thing was just understanding up front what the values of the company were through the internship, and understanding there are these sets of values and I really aligned with them all. And so to me, it was just like this, you know, like I like agreed and I wanted to be a part of that and be a part of like a team that's so focused on like such great values. So like it's hard to pinpoint just one that really stood out to me in the moment, but knowing like these are the values and we want to live into them. It's not just something you put on a plaque somewhere on a wall and then you never think about it again. It's like you live into them.
It's great, Mackie. Good insights.
I really liked that you are very open to hearing everyone's thoughts and ideas and wanting to hear them. And, you know, you don't, you know, some people take it as I'm in charge, you know, I have the say so, but you really are very open with us and you want to hear our ideas because we all have different talents and you let everyone kind of show their talent. And I think that's great.
Awesome. Cool. Well, great job, guys. So that's the first thing is just we want to make sure that we have good values and clear about them because it does attract the right talent if we're clear about that and communicate it. So that's one of the reasons why it's so important. The other one is that it molds our people, right? So values allow you to give clear, concise feedback and make sure everyone has a standard, right? So if you don't have any clear values of what it is and how you want to operate and why this is so important, you just don't have a standard, and that therefore anything goes. And that starts to get chaotic and tough for people because they're not quite sure. When I was playing rugby years ago for Coach Larry, who you guys have heard about before, you know, he was an unbelievable leader, just incredible man. And so he used to tell us at the beginning of every season, he said, okay, guys, here's the deal. He said, you're going to sign a contract before the season starts. And he said, here's the deal. He said, no drinking, no drugs. And he says, you know, no messing around with girls. He had to literally sign this document. And so, you know, it was one of the reasons he was so clear about the values of the team. And we had to take it that serious to the point that he would have some of his top players that if they did not abide by it, and he says, this is literally, you guys are held accountable to this. So he said, if your teammate breaks this, you need to let us know. It's up to you. You guys need to own this. And so, so sure as heck, someone would break the rules and we'd have to communicate that, and that person would be taken out of the game. And so he was that serious about it. And we just took it really serious, and it helped mold us because we just thought, oh my gosh, like this is the standard by which we are all accountable to it, and helped us own it that much more because we knew exactly what it is. You know, that it meant for us to really, you know, make sure that we were living the values. So in your own life, I'd be curious to hear, we're going to make this somewhat interactive through the whole thing, but I'd love to hear from you guys in your own life, whether it's your family or another organization or something you're involved in. How did the values help shape you while you were going through it?
I did cheer for like 10 years in competitive cheer, and the place that I did that at was my parents really only let me do it because they were so focused on values. And I wish that I could say that I remember every single one they taught us because I really should. But I remember that we had this thing and it was called like C5P, like C, like to the exponent of 5P. And it was like talking about like character, commitment, Christ-like, compassion. There was like a couple of other things. And then the last, like the P was like passion. It was basically like you do these 5 things and you focus on these 5 things in your character. And then you do all of those things with a passion. And that just kind of makes you like a well-rounded and all-around better person. And that always stuck with me. But the thing that really stuck with me more than anything was like character and how they described character, and that character was basically your integrity and who you were when nobody was looking. And that like genuinely stuck with me, burned in my head from the second they told me that, and it's lived with me ever since then.
I love that. Just when no one else is watching, right? In fact, our coach used to say that all the time. He says, you know, your true measure of a character is how you treat the person that's the janitor as well as the CEO.
Mhm.
And it was just always a great thing. So I love that. Great one. Anybody else? Okay. So values give peace of mind. Peace of mind can only come when you have standards, right? And so when people know what success is tied to, 3 or 4 things that are clear, it gives them the objective ways, right? Objective, not subjective ways to know they're having success. So I went back and looked at a little bit of the undergirding of peace of mind for us. These were some of the things that we have here, right? Accountability through specified metrics, clarity on expectations and goals, fair compensation that's benched against the market, compassion to lead the right pathways, honest in our dealings, right? You know, taking care of the resources that we're given, living our cultural mission, and then delivering on the expectations of the position. So just having a standard of what we mean when we say, you know, our values, or what do those mean? So just if you think about, for us, we really take the time to say, you know, when we say I own it, or when we say this is what we mean by it. And here's an example of it. And this is what we don't. That gives a nice foundation and an architecture of what that means. So you know what it is that the boundaries are to operate in. And I think that those types of things help give peace of mind because there's more clarity. So I'd love to just hear from you guys, 1 or 2 of you. What gives you peace of mind? Whether it's some of those things, you know, in working here.
I think what gives me peace of mind is just knowing that we're all trying to help each other grow and achieve our personal and professional goals.
Mm.
And even when we go through the hard times, we always do find ways to overcome those potential problems that can come with that. You know, we just always support each other so well. And also we also have a lot of knowledge and expertise from the past, right? Where you do a really good job at sharing, here's how I experienced the recession of '08, right? Where we can learn from those failures and then build from those. And I think having known that we've experienced it and we know how we've overcome it in the past gives me peace of mind, because it just shows that, you know, we can really take on a lot more than we think we can, and we're always going to overcome them.
It's great, Dan.
A really kind of specific way I've seen this like play out into my own life. Just the fact that values give peace of mind. So like the value of managing priorities well. I've been really trying to focus on those time blocks. And there was a couple days ago, I just did not, I kind of veered away from some of the time blocks I had. And I left that day kind of feeling like, oh, like I just didn't have like as much like peace about like, okay, like I knew what I, you know, accomplished, but I realized it had to do with just like, I wasn't following through very well with the time blocks that day versus all the other days before. And so it just affirmed how important it is to, you know, manage priorities well, because there is a lot of peace that comes with that. And that's super, super specific. But overall, I know these values, like when we're clear and we have laid them out clearly, it does set standards, which gives us that peace of mind.
It's great. Good job.
I think that recently for me, I'm doing the leadership challenge with, you know, I'm going through the leadership challenge, you know, I'm talking about there. But recently for me, that's given a lot of peace of mind with the fact that like those 5 exemplary practices, every problem that I face, like there's always something that I'm going to do next. Like I have a next step to do, because those are the 5 things that should always happen when something pops up. So that's given me a lot of peace of mind recently.
Yeah, it's a great model to pull everything through to say, how am I going to tackle this?
Yeah.
Leadership challenge. Great job. Okay, so values give peace of mind. Values are the bedrock of prioritization. So your values should drive key here, where you spend your time and where you say bye-bye, right? So it allows you to have a foundation to say, I'm going to spend more time here. So these values that you sort of, put together allows you to kind of go, okay, this is where I'm going to spend more time and where I'm going to say bye-bye, right? So fun values health, right? Getting up early will happen, generally speaking. If that time that's important to do those things. Um, you know, so for me, making sure that health is an important thing, because if that's not there, then a lot of other things fall, right? So I make that, it's a value that helps me prioritize that so that I can do the other things, right? And then my time on Sunday of just having a Sabbath rest, that's important for me. So that time just gets blocked. I don't have anything on my schedule, right? It's just that is a priority. We had, a kind of a challenge because there's so many things going on, uh, right now with the fund and work and all the other things and boards, and that there was, we'd gotten a insurance license, and so Mackie had said, "Oh gosh, there's these hours you have to put in. There's like 50 some odd hours to re-up," and so it created this tension, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, how am I going to fit one more thing into all this stuff that's going on?" And then Dan and I had to talk about it, and we finally wrestled to a final conclusion that it's not a priority, just because the other values overrode that and drove us to say bye-bye, right? We just said, we're going to let it go. It's just not, it's not a priority right now, because it's just, the values are driving us to a totally different direction. And so that's been, the challenge that I've had to constantly face of managing priorities, but values are the bedrock of prioritization. So I'd be curious to hear from maybe one or two of you guys. Have there been some times when you've had to exercise this, where you've got to be like, gosh, I'm bumping up against this thing, and I've had to, finally kind of assess the values, and then it helped me just drive the decision to maybe say goodbye to something or say yes to something else. Love to hear from.
Dave, this is
Yeah.
actually Mackie and I went over kind of like my why and my mission statement Monday.
Yeah,
And I don't have an example of it yet because I'm just starting it, but
yeah,
I have found that a lot of my stress, like with everything, comes from me never learning to say no.
Yeah.
Like I constantly am saying yes. So like I went over my why of what's most important to me and why it is, and then how I'm going to prioritize what's most important and not put so much pressure on myself with the things that I have not finished that day.
yep,
And then if it doesn't have to do like on my personal level with my family, my friends, my health, meaning my spiritual, my mental health, my physical health,
yep.
and I don't put those things first, I'm going to say no to the other things. And that is something I'm working on.
That's fantastic. What a great example, and a hard one, to be able to say, what do I say no to and what do I say yes to, and giving some thought to that, really thinking through those things. And it's an exercise that's going to serve you so well. And so I commend you for that. Great job.
Thanks.
Awesome, Cassie. Yeah, well, actually, I'll read you guys my personal mission. It's right in front of me. It's to bring joy, positivity, and mentorship to those I have the privilege to meet. And so everything I do has to align with my personal mission. So I'm with you, Cassie. I love saying yes. I'm a yes, yes, yes. I don't want to miss things. I don't want to lose out an opportunity to go have a good time, right? But I've struggled that a long time, and I started saying no to the things that weren't a priority, and actually my well-being and personal health got way better because of that, because I was focusing on the things that actually mattered and were the highest and best use of my time. So I was more productive, I was more successful, and it also helped deepen relationships. So I think although it's tough, there is a way out, and there's always light at the end of the tunnel there. So keep working at it.
Great job. And when we say yes to something, we're automatically saying no to something else. And so it's always a good thing. And when we're saying no, we're saying yes. So Those two are just hitched to each other because we're all in finite time. So values drive business models. Values drive business models. And you say, well, what's that all about? Well, your values will ultimately help shape and mold how they go to the market. A lot of this can be found when we went through Good to Great. They kind of say, well, what are you passionate about, right? What are you so excited and passionate about? And so you say, well, why does that even matter? Well, because ultimately you're going to eventually just bend to where you're excited and passionate about. You'll eventually just go back to where your giftings are, where you're passionate about, what excites you. You think about Jeff Bezos, he valued creativity in space. He really loved and thought about space all the time. And look where he is now, right? So he started Amazon, and obviously is, going into space was eventually something because it was a passion of his. There was a friend of mine who had a supplements, pretty large supplements company, and him and his wife were just absolutely passionate about and valued pickleball. They just loved pickleball more than anything. And so what they ended up doing was they actually designed a supplement that was like a pickleball supplement. I just laughed about it. And I'm like, you realize anybody could have this, not for pickleball. He goes, I know, but we love pickleball so much that we came up with a supplement that's a pickleball supplement. And so they actually travel around to all the pickleball tournaments, and it became a huge success for them because they were so passionate and it was such a driving value for them. He also said to me, I said, you ought to do the same thing for, marathons, because you could do the same thing over there. And he says, no, we won't do it. I said, well, why not? And he said, because we're not passionate about it. We don't value that. It's just not important to us. And so he just knew that that was a no for him, and it drove their business model. They also valued fun. So they would do these fun Friday videos that were just hilarious that they would use as part of their marketing as well. Dutch Bros, valued fun, right? So you ever go through Dutch Bros, right? It's fun. They're trying to get to know you. They know your name, and henceforth birth the concept. And so, just remember that as we are forming our values and laying these out, this really drives a lot of where we're going for our business model. We really value this idea of peace of mind. We value this idea of simplicity. We value this idea of, giving somebody this unique experience. And so we're taking that and mirroring it with our values to say, this is what we're passionate about, who we are, as we come up with our own hedgehog principle. But that's really why values are important. This literally drives business models, and we don't really necessarily think about that as much as we should. But values to me is literally the foundation of the house we're building. And if we don't have it, everything else crumbles if you don't stay true to the values that you operate under. And so for us, many, many things are going to change going forward. I mean, daily, weekly, hourly, we're adjusting our process. We're adjusting people from time to time. We're adjusting the direction we're going. We're adjusting the clientele, what assets are we going after. There's so many things that will change, but the values won't. They're just the bedrock that we can bank on, that will be the place we go to for how we're going to make decisions, who we're going to bring on, what direction we're going to go. And because it's such an important part of us, we're a value-based company. If you think about that, that's the way we function. That's the way we operate. It's the way we think. And so it's just a critical part to understand why values are so important. And not just for us, but for society as a whole. We're in a weird time where there's so much chaos, and people just gotten away from values, right? And so it helps drive decisions, and it helps drives us in a particular direction. So here's the action items for us in terms of what I want us to do next as we continue this dialogue. And then I'll just leave a little bit of time after this to have some discussions around this as we think through this. But I want us to take 30 to 45 minutes on your own time over the next week, just to write down what you value most about Integrity Capital. Keep it, to 2 to 4 things, whatever those things are, 4 to 5, somewhere in that range. I just realized I can't even spell in capital, capital, but and then B is what you think our top 4 you values are. Like if you were to choose today and you said, okay, and you were forced to say, what are the top 4 values out of all those 10 plus values? What are they? What would you choose? And then the third one is, why do you believe these values will help drive tremendous growth? Okay. And that'll just be part of this exercise. And then we'll continue this dialogue and conversation next week as we really press into the importance of our value system here at Integrity Capital.